Are you planning a trip to a Universal Orlando resort? Well, here's some mistakes to avoid so you can have the best experience possible. Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Andy, and I love to talk about fun things to do in Florida, from the theme parks to the state parks, and everywhere in between. So for the past couple of years now, my family and I have been Universal Pass holders, Universal Orlando Pass holders. We do this thing where we'll go back and forth between maybe Disney and Universal every couple of years, keep it fresh. For the last couple of years, we've been doing Universal, and we have been loving it. But, you know, we've made some mistakes along the way, and today I want to talk to you guys about some mistakes to avoid if you're coming to Universal for the first time, or maybe for the first time in a while, because things are always changing, and share some tips and tricks and mistakes we've made along the way so you have the best experience possible when you come here. Now, the first mistake to avoid, or really the first trap to avoid, is you'll hit this one right away when you first come in, and this is the prime parking. When you come in to pay to park, you're going to be offered prime parking, and parking in a theme park is kind of a racket anyway. It's pretty expensive, and prime parking particularly, I want to say I've seen it upwards of close to $60 on some days, depending on busier days, and to me that is just really not worth it. They're not even parking you right up near the entrance to the park. You're still in the same parking garage as everybody else. You may just be on a different level that will save you like 1 or 2 escalator rides before you get to the main like hub area. Really not worth it. That's more than double what you're paying to park to maybe save yourself a minute or 2 at a time. I parked there only because it's included with our season passes, but if you're coming as a visitor, I would skip that and save that money for something else, because parks are expensive, and anywhere you can save money is something I'm definitely for doing. So after you've parked and after you've gone through security, you are going to hit a series of moving walkways that are going to take you to City Walk and then on to the parks. And this is kind of a PSA as well as a mistake to avoid. And please don't be one of these people who blocks the entire thing and stands on the left and you have your whole group blocking the thing, because there's a lot of people that are trying to get to the parks and they're going to be using the moving walkway as a walkway, and they're going to be trying to walk, and if you're blocking them, you're holding people up, and you might get some stink eye, you might get some comments under the breath a little bit. You don't want to do that, and I'm not saying you can't stand on it, because a lot of people, they want to stand. It's a lot of walking happens at these parks. You want to save your feet, but if you want to do that, stand on the right side and use the left side as the passing lane. Just keep it clear, because you will see a lot of people walking through there, and they wanna get places. They have places to be in the parks, and a lot of people are in a hurry to get in there and have fun. So you don't want to hold people up, and you don't want to get any grumpy looks from people. So treat it like it's the interstate. You know, left side's the passing lane, right side's the slow lane. So if you want to chill out in the right lane and hang out on the moving walkway, it's all good. You're not hurting anybody, but just hang out on the right side. That's all I ask. And this is actually a common complaint you'll see on like the pass holder Facebook groups and things like that. People are always kind of making fun of people who block the moving walkway. So don't be one of those people. Next mistake to avoid is not making a dinner reservation, especially inside of City Walk. City Walk, the restaurants get really busy, especially later in the evening and after the parks close. It's really not uncommon to come out of the parks and everything has a 1 to 2 hour wait, or even longer in some cases. I've come out of the parks during spring break, and we were looking for a place to eat, and we didn't make reservations because we weren't really planning on eating. And I want to say Margaritaville had like a 2.5 hour wait, and so we went to Big Fire, 2.5 hour wait. Every place had a really long wait. So definitely want to make dinner reservations if you are planning on eating in the parks, or eating in City Walk rather, because it is a madhouse in there. And you can do that with the app. You can make your reservations right on the Universal app. And that takes me to another mistake to avoid, and that's not downloading the Universal app. The Universal app will come in really handy while you're here. You can make dinner reservations on it. You can check queue length times. You can check show times. It'll basically just keep you plugged into everything that's going on around the park. And it's not like Disney. I know a lot of people don't really love the whole Genie Plus experience with Disney because they're always on their phone, always trying to plan what's going on. That's not really the case here. You'll just use it as kind of a guide to see what the lines are. Maybe you can help plan your day a little bit, but definitely download the app, especially if you want to order food or make dinner reservations. And staying in City Walk, another mistake to avoid is getting in line and wasting a big chunk of your day over at Voodoo Donuts. I'm not saying Voodoo Donuts is bad. I think it's okay, in my personal opinion. They're fine. But the line can be very long and it can move very slowly, and you'll see people getting in that line and they'll be eating up a good chunk of their day before they even get in the park just to go in and get a dozen donuts. So a really great tip here is don't make the mistake of getting in the line, but get on that app that I just told you to download and you can actually order donuts ahead of time and then pick them up right outside. There's a little booth right outside the Voodoo Donuts shop where that's specifically set up for people picking up their to-go orders. And you can use the app for mobile food ordering all over the parks too, so you can order ahead and come up to some of the quick service food spots and save yourself some time in line. So definitely don't forget to do that. Don't make the mistake of not using the app and taking advantage of mobile food ordering. Next mistake to avoid is not bringing a backpack. And if you are going to bring a backpack, another mistake you want to avoid is not bringing one that's really, really large. I like these small string backpacks, these drawstring backpacks, because they're just big enough to carry the stuff you're going to want to bring in the park, but they're also very light. I'll throw this thing on and I forget I even have it on 10 minutes later. You can use this to put your keys in, your wallet, just things you don't want to lose, because a lot of the rides will have metal detectors and they don't let you bring literally almost anything on. You can't bring anything metal, you can't bring your keys on, you can't bring your phone on, you can't bring anything that's going to fall out. Velocicoaster is like that, Rip Ride RockIt is like that, the Hulk is like that. They make you shove everything into a locker, and if you bring a backpack, you can put everything in the backpack, and it needs to be small enough to fit in the little locker, and you can slide it right in there. And it's good for carrying around all the little other incidentals that I'll be getting to that you don't want to forget. Next mistake you want to avoid at Universal is not taking advantage of the free water that's in the Coke Freestyle machines. Around the park, there are all these Coke Freestyle machines that you've probably seen these things where they have dozens and dozens of different Coke products and you can mix them together and match them. You can make thousands or millions of different combinations. And they do sell cups like this that you can buy for the day, and if you come back, you can recharge it. They kind of scan a little chip on the bottom and you can recharge it for the day. But the water in the machines is totally free. So if you're not a big soda person, you don't even need to use this cup. You can bring your own water bottle or your own drinking vessel or whatever you want to do and put it right up there, and water is 100% free, so you definitely want to take advantage of that. It gets really, really hot in the summer. As you know, it's Florida, it's Orlando. You want to stay hydrated, it's 100% free, so it's a really great tip to keep everybody in the game because you don't want to dehydrate out there. And that's why I said to bring the backpack, because carrying around a cup like this all day is a pain. Nobody wants to carry a cup all day. So you just shove it in the backpack, throw it on your back, and you will forget you even had it within 5 minutes. Another thing you don't want to forget to put in your little backpack, the backpack is key, is a little portable phone charger. Something that can recharge your phone later throughout the day, because you're going to be on your phone here and there checking the app for queue times and show times and making those dinner reservations and ordering that food. But you're going to be spending a lot of time in line, and when you're spending time in line, you'll look and everybody in the line will be on their phones playing games, playing trivia, playing that game where it's got a keyword on it, and you hold it up on your head, and people in your party have to make you guess what your secret word is. And phones have a limited battery, so you're going to go through your battery throughout the day, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to burn through your battery halfway through the day and then not be able to check the app and not be able to check queue times and not reach the other people in your group if you get separated, and not keep yourself entertained while you're in line. You want to keep yourself entertained in line. It helps pass the time a lot on some of these longer lines. I like the phone chargers that plug directly into the phone that don't have the cord. It's just a little thing you just slide right in there. Those are my favorite because they take a lot less room. You don't have cords dangling, and it's one more thing you can shove in that backpack I keep coming back to. Another mistake to avoid that will help save you a little bit of money is not realizing that Universal does allow you to bring your own food into the parks. A lot of people don't realize that, and I'm not saying you need to bring all your meals in. You could do that if you wanted to save a little money. We will at least throw some snacks in the backpack, some granola bars or candy bars or some nuts or something like that to get us between meals so we're not spending so much money in the park because it's really expensive in there. But you can bring some light meals in too. We have been known as locals who will go out there on a weekend just as something to do to maybe throw a public sub in there and have that for lunch, and then maybe eat dinner in the park or eat dinner at City Walk. But it is a way to save you a little bit of money if that's something you're interested in doing. Just don't bring glass. Glass bottles are not allowed. They're totally cool with your plastic bottles and your plastic cups that they sell, but just no glass and no alcohol. Don't bring a can of beer in. That is a definite no-no. Another mistake to avoid, and it's a big pet peeve among a lot of the locals and regulars like myself and some of the other pass holders that are out there a lot, is don't crowd the locker rooms. This is another little bit of a public service announcement, maybe kind of similar on the whole don't block the moving walkway thing. But some of these locker rooms are fairly small and they're not really designed to have a ton of people in there. And some of the locker rooms and some of the roller coasters like Rip Ride, RockIt, and Velocicoaster, and a few of the others, Hulk, they don't let you bring really anything out of the ride. So you've got to put everything in a locker. The lockers are totally free, but you do need to use that. And you will see a lot of families going in there, and they'll bring their whole family of 4, 5, 6 people in there for just one person. Only one person is required to shove the stuff in the locker, but you'll see groups of people standing around watching that one person put it in the locker, and that's totally not necessary, and it really crowds the lockers for everybody else. The one around Gringotts, Escape from Gringotts, Diagon Alley, is notorious for this. It's a very small locker room, and you'll go through there on the best of days, and it will be very, very, very crowded. And it only makes it worse when people bring their entire family in there to just watch one person put things in the locker. So, just send one person, give all your stuff to that one person. They go in and put stuff in the locker, and then they come out and meet you, and makes a better experience for everybody. Next mistake to avoid, and this is really a big one if you want to have the best experience and just get everything out of your trip to Universal, is know what experiences are there, know what rides and attractions are actually in the park, and know which ones you want to see. You'd be surprised how many people just walk in there, they pay all this money for a ticket, and they don't even really know what the park has to offer. And this is inspired by a recent experience I had where I was standing in front of Hagrids motorcycle adventure, or what is it called? Hagrids motorbikes or whatever, Hagrids motorbike. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, which is like the best ride in the park. I mean, it may even be the best ride in Florida. And I'm standing there, and this family walks by, and this kid says to his dad, "Oh, hey, Dad, there's another ride right here." And the line was like 90 minutes long. And they looked at it. They just looked at the line, looked around, and just kind of walked right past it, as if they didn't even know what it was. And I'm like, guys, you didn't just walk past any old ride. You walked past the ride. That is like the best ride. And they didn't seem to even know it existed or know anything about it. They just kind of looked at it, took it in, walked right past it. And I really hope for their sake that they did come back to it, because Hagrid's is the #1 can't miss ride for everybody. If you are even slightly into thrill rides, it's really a can't miss. It's fun and thrilling without being scary, if that makes sense. So Hagrid's is definitely a can't miss. And it's just a big bummer for people to walk right by that and not even know that that's a ride that you want to go on. I'm just amazed that people will spend all this money and just walk right in there and just completely wing it. I'm for winging it, definitely for going with the flow and seeing what lines are short and taking advantage of short lines and lower crowd areas. But you got to know what you want to do, because it's just kind of crazy to me to spend all this money and plan this big trip and then just go in there and have no idea what you're ready to experience. So at least do your base level of homework on that. And on that note, another mistake you don't want to make is just walking right past Bourne Stuntacular and not walking in there and going on that show. I have been in front of the Bourne Stuntacular show building a bunch of times and seen people walk by it, look at the sign, Bourne Stuntacular, they see Matt Damon up there, and they don't think anything of it, they just keep on walking. Maybe they've never seen the movie and thought that was like really important to the experience. It really isn't. And to me, Bourne Stuntacular it's the best show at Universal. I think it's a top tier attraction, and it could be one of the best shows in Orlando. It is technologically crazy. The effects, the action, the stunts are just absolutely next level on that thing, and it is a can't miss experience. Even if you've never seen the Bourne Identity movies, it really isn't a thing you need to do. You'll catch on. And I have heard people say that the show can be a little confusing, the plot can be a little bit confusing, and I think that's fair. It can be a little bit confusing, but honestly, it doesn't really matter because the action and stunts and technology and effects are just so great that it's worth seeing even if you can't even follow the plot. It can be a little loud for kids. There are some loud like gunshots and explosions at some scenes, so little ones, you might want to give them some earplugs or give them a heads up that there's going to be some loud stuff happening so that it doesn't ruin their day. Another mistake that some people make is not at least considering staying on property at a Universal hotel. And I'm not being paid to say that. I'm not a sponsor. They're not sponsoring me or anything like that. But they do offer some really good benefits for staying on property. For one, you get an additional hour in the park before it even opens. You get a full hour to yourself before all the rest of the people come in. And if you're staying in one of the mid or top level hotels, you get free express pass for every day that you're staying there. And that is a really big value. Certain days I've seen them charge double or even triple a one-day ticket just for the express pass. And so, that's something to think about. Look and see what they're charging and then maybe compare that to some of the off-property hotels. And then maybe it's worth paying a little bit of extra money for stay on property just for that benefit. You get an extra hour in the park, and you get the express passes, and you don't have to pay for parking, and you're right there. So it's a lot more convenient too to stay on property. Again, totally up to you. You may need to do the math on that one if it's worth it to you, but it's at least something to consider because the benefits are really, really great, especially if this is your big vacation and you only get a couple of days. You want to see everything. You want to do everything. You want to make sure you hit all the rides and attractions that you can. So that's one thing to consider, and don't make the mistake of just overlooking that and thinking it's too expensive and not even considering it. And if you are staying at a Universal hotel on property, you are not going to want to make the mistake of not going on Hagrids first thing. If you're staying on property, you do want to use that extra hour to go right to Hagrids because that will have the longest line all day long. So you want to get that out of the way early, and if you loved it and you feel like you want to wait in line for it again later in the day, hey, you can go on it twice, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not staying on property, this one some people may have some different opinions on this, but I think it's actually a mistake to go right to Hagrid's during rope drop, because if you follow the herd and as soon as the gates open and you are running to Hagrid's along with everybody else who's not staying on property and doesn't have that additional hour, by the time you get to Hagrid's, it's kind of already too late. The line is going to be 90 minutes to 2 hours already. And I think that first hour could be best spent going on other rides and attractions around the park that may have longer lines later. If you go right to Hagrid's, you're not really going to get much of a time benefit there because everybody's going there. So go against the flow there. While everybody's going over to Hagrid's, you go on all the other stuff, and you can always save Hagrid's for later. The line will be longer later, not going to lie. It's probably going to be 90 minutes to 2 hours most of the day. But if you go and consider that's going to be your one long line you're going to wait in, it's doable. You can manage it. Just have your phone charged up, have that charger ready to go, and just say, this is going to be my one long line I'm going to wait in. It could be 90 minutes, but if you see it 90 minutes or even less on certain days, I would just take advantage of that and just jump on it because it's very, very rarely shorter than 90 minutes. But you can go on it at the end of the day, and this is probably where you're going to have the shortest line. If you get in line for Hagrid's right before the park closes, you may wait 45 minutes or less for that. But the risk there is that Hagrid's is a roller coaster that does break down quite a bit. It does typically come back up, but if it breaks down late in the day and they don't get it back up and you've never gone on it, you may miss your chance to even go on it at all. So that is a risk, but it will have the shortest lines, typically if you wait till right before the park closes to get on that one. Another mistake to avoid, especially if you're a big Harry Potter person, is not realizing that you do need a 2-park ticket to go on the Hogwarts Express. So the Hogwarts Express it's a ride, it's a kind of a cool little attraction, but it's also like a transportation system that takes you between both the parks. Kind of like the monorail at Disney, but the thing is, to ride it, you do need to have a 2-park pass. You can't just have a 1-day ticket and get on the Hogwarts Express, which I think is a little bit of a bummer. I really wish there was a way that they could just let people ride it, maybe go to the other station and get off without going into the other park and then coming back, just so that people who don't have the 2-park ticket can still experience it, because I think it's kind of a big like bucket list item for Harry Potter fans to ride the Hogwarts Express, and not everybody can afford the park hopper ticket, so to not let people ride it just because they didn't spend extra money, I think is a little bit of a shame, but maybe one of these days Universal will figure that one out. Now this next mistake to avoid, it's not so much a mistake, but more of a tip to have a little bit of extra fun, and that is not knowing that there is a secret song menu on Rip Ride RockIt. If you're not familiar with Rip Ride RockIt, it's a roller coaster that has like a little touch screen in the lap restraint, and you can choose a bunch of pre-selected songs to listen to while you're on it. There's speakers in the headrest that plays music for you while you're on the ride, and there's about 20-25 songs I want to say that are already pre-selected for you, but there's actually a much longer list that they don't advertise, they don't publicize, and it's really easy to do it. There's kind of like a little cheat code you've got to put in. I will put the link in the description on how to do it, but it is very easy. You just have to hold the little logo on the top of the screen down for 10 seconds, and then you do need to enter in a 3-digit code of the song you want to play. You do need to know that 3-digit code, but it's out there, and I will link in the description the different songs that you can play in the secret song menu. This is a better tip for people who may have been on Rip Ride RockIt a bunch of times and want to try something new. If it's your first time, I would recommend just maybe going with one of the ones that are pre-selected for you. You don't want to be messing with that if it's your first time, I don't think. Another mistake to avoid is underestimating just how wet you're going to get on some of the water rides at Islands of Adventure. Jurassic Park makes a huge splash, but you really don't get all that wet on it. You get like refreshingly wet, I think, on Jurassic Park. I really like going on that on a hot day because it gets you just wet enough to kind of make you feel, okay, good, I'm back in the game, you know, I like that. But Popeyes, Bilge Rat Barges, and Ripsaw Falls will get you really wet, especially Popeyes. Popeyes is one of those like circular tube rides, circular like rapids rides, and you get absolutely drenched on that thing. A lot of the rides like this, they're kind of like a roulette wheel. Someone might get really wet and someone might not get wet at all, but Popeyes, no, nobody's getting out of that one alive. Everybody's getting drenched on that. Ripsaw Falls, you get pretty wet on it. For that one, it's more of like your feet and your legs will really get wet, and I hate having wet feet. So a tip you might want to even do there is throw some flip-flops in that backpack I mentioned, and only wear flip-flops when you're on that ride because nobody wants to walk around with wet feet all day. It's the worst. I hate it. And I really avoid Popeyes mostly specifically because of that, because walking around with wet feet is the worst and I hate it. And if you underestimate how wet you're going to get, it could ruin your day because you will get absolutely soaked. You'll get so soaked, it looks like someone just threw you in a swimming pool with your clothes on. And while I'm on the topic of staying dry, another mistake to avoid is forgetting about the summer thunderstorms that are going to roll through during the summer months. And the months of June, July, and August, it's going to rain most days in Orlando for at least a little bit. It's pretty rare that like a storm is going to sit over the parks and just wash out the entire day. That doesn't really happen too often, but what will happen are these quick-moving thunderstorms that come and go in the late afternoon. They dump a bunch of rain. They're going to close down a lot of the outdoor roller coasters because of thunder and lightning, and then they're going to move on just as fast as they came in, and the sky is going to be blue again. But definitely consider the fact that, yes, for maybe 20, 30 minutes to an hour, the park is going to be, it's going to be raining in the park, and some of those big attractions are going to be closed. And that's the time you're going to want to go on some of the shows, the indoor shows, the Bourne Stuntacular, the horror makeup show, some of the indoor rides. And also you might want to get back to that backpack and throw some cheap dollar store ponchos in there just in case, because if you want some ponchos for that little hour that it's raining, it'll save you some money there because then you won't have to buy the $10 or whatever it is they're charging for ponchos these days at Universal that you may end up only needing for a few minutes. The next mistake to avoid is probably one of my biggest tips I have for anybody going to Universal and for Disney really, and that is to not consider using the single rider lines. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a lot of the rides you'll see 3 lines. You'll see the Express Pass, you'll see the standby queue, and then you will see the single rider line. And the single rider line, it doesn't mean it's just people who are in the park solo, and it doesn't mean it's people who are like single and looking to hook up or anything like that, even though that might be a good selling point, really. It's just for people who don't mind getting their party broken up, because they're going to use that line to fill in some of the empty seats throughout the ride that there may be, because there's odd numbers of parties and there's always going to be a few empty seats on a ride. So they're going to grab people from the single rider line and fill those seats. Now, the benefit to this is you will get through the line a lot faster. But like I said before, you're not going to be able to sit with your party though. So if you're with a family and it's really important that you all ride a ride together, you may not want to do this. But if you don't really care, because you're not going to be able to have a conversation with your family anyway while you're on a ride, this is a really good way of saving some time. Some of the rides, I want to say, like Men in Black and Forbidden Journey, the Harry Potter ride inside of Hogwarts, those can be very fast. They can be almost walk-ons. The line outside might say an hour, and you'll be on the ride in 15 minutes, in my experience. The Hulk is a pretty good single rider line. Most of them will always save you time, except with two big exceptions. And that is going to be Velocicoaster and Hagrids. Those are very hit and miss. I've been in the single rider line there where it is a little bit shorter. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a lot a bit longer. Sometimes it's about the same. So for those, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the single rider line for Velocicoaster or Hagrids. But for everything else, definitely worth doing. If you don't really care about sitting next to your party, but you do want to save time, because then you can go on a lot more stuff throughout the day, and lines are long. You want to save time in lines wherever you can. But I will say this, if you're going to do the single rider line for Forbidden Journey, the Harry Potter ride inside of Hogwarts, you are going to miss a lot of the queue. And if you're a big Harry Potter fan and you want to go inside Hogwarts and see the entire queue, and it's a great queue, it's probably one of the best queues in Florida, you're only going to get a very abbreviated tour of it. You'll save a lot of time in line, but you're not going to see much of the castle. So that's something to consider. And my final mistake to avoid is really, I hate to say it, but waiting any more than 20 minutes for the Fast and Furious ride. This ride, in my opinion, and it's not an unpopular opinion, was kind of a big miss for Universal. It's really not a great attraction, and if you're there on a busier day, it could be 60 minutes or more for this ride, and it's really, really not worth waiting more than 20 minutes for. It might be worth waiting 20 minutes or less just because you want to see everything, you want to do everything. But if you wait for more than an hour, more than 30 minutes to an hour or longer for this, you're going to come off disappointed, and you're going to think, I just spent a big chunk of my day for that. Really not worth waiting more than 20 minutes for. I hate to say it, and I want to love everything because it's a fairly new ride, but the thing that stinks the most about the Fast and Furious is that they took away Earthquake for this. It was called Earthquake, then I think it was changed to Disaster. And that was an original ride that was kind of unique. You rode on a little subway and you had a little earthquake and fire and water hit you, and it was a very like old school, cool, nostalgic ride. They took that away to put in something that's not nearly as good as what they used to have. And I'm not against change. I'm all for moving on and getting rid of old rides and replacing them with better ones. But what you replace it with has to be better than the old one. If you're going backwards, that's a big mistake. And Fast and Furious is a big mistake, and I really hope that they will get around to replacing that one eventually. But don't wait more than 20 minutes for that. It's really not worth it. So that does it for my list of some mistakes to avoid and some tips and tricks to save money and save time around Universal. This is not necessarily the correct list, it's just my list and some of the things that I've learned along the way with my family. If there's any that I missed, any big mistakes or tips that you want to share with everybody, please drop them in the comments. Everybody else would love to hear about them, I'm sure, and maybe eventually I'll do another video and include all the new ones. So thanks a lot, you guys. If you like this kind of content, you want to learn about fun things to do around Florida, please like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, all that stuff. I'm sure you've heard all that before. So we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching.